I've been searching for a ghost ever since I first heard the legend of the Underdog, a 56 Chevy straight axle gasser that ran the streets of San Francisco's Chinatown half a century ago. Every self-respecting gearhead in 3 counties seemed to know the story, but very few claim to have ever seen it, and even fewer seem to know what happened to it. The car was so legendary, in fact, that my best friend and a Bay Area legend in his own right, Dave Tanamura, built his own tribute car a few years ago to keep its story alive. When he suddenly passed away, I realized that one of the many things we never got to do together was chase down the original Underdog that he loved so much. So, with a heart full of regret for not doing it sooner, and fantasies of finding the original Underdog in some underground Chinatown garage, I started asking around. But here's the thing about Chinatown. It does not give up its secrets easily. American car culture has found its way all around the world. It's a national treasure that has gone global and soaked deep into just about every aspect of modern life, and most people don't even know it. I'm Dan Stoner, and I've spent my life searching for the legends of underground car culture hidden in plain sight, and telling their stories that nobody else can. Some you might be familiar with, some you might not. These are the stories you've heard of, but have never actually heard. This is the Motor Underground. How do you pierce the veil of one of the most mysterious societies in America? Turns out, old cars are the universal language that gets you into the garage, up the stairs, or out back through the gate. And after a few dead ends and trails running cold, I finally found Frank Puller.
When I came here, it was just my mom and my sisters, no dad. So there was this gas station about 2 blocks away that I hung out at. And just so happens, John Choi was working at that station. It was a mobile station on California in the Visadero Street.
Frankie Puller was a close friend of the family. He used to work there part-time besides working for my dad. And I remember going there and he's working on the car. He's changing his tires for his Roadrunner. He had a Hemmings Roadrunner.
I was like about 9-10 years old. And that's when I first met John, because I was trying to steal a soda from the machine and he caught me. If you were a good kid, or even you're bad, he took you in, and if you're bad, he'll tell you, he'll straighten you out. I remember one year that John Choi, JC, got me. He said, "Frank, I got a bike for you." A bike? We're poor. I got no bike. He said, "This is your bike." I go, "It's a used bike." But I go, "Wow, that's my bike." He goes, "That's your bike?" I go, "Wow." And it had a big basket. I said, "Wow, it's got a big basket on though." He goes, "Yeah, because you're going to pedal down to Feather Street to the auto shop and give me my parts and bring it back." I go, "Shit." Okay, that's how I got that bike. I went down to the parts store to bring back the parts. And I went to work for him, and he was my sponsor. I raced under John's 76 station. I raced for almost 10 years. Got 1 trophy. I won once. So I got 1, right? I got 1 trophy. My father and son, and went to his house, and we went fishing a lot. He taught me how to fish, taught me how to work on cars. He bought me my first car. He bought me a 51 Plymouth, black and rust. It was half black and half rust. Because back in the 60s in Chinatown, he was the main guy that had that gas station, John 76 on Bay and Columbus. He would help me like 2 o'clock in the morning, change the engines. I mean, he would, if he didn't have nowhere to go, because we always closed up at midnight. But John let the guys come. I had the keys, right? So John said, as long as you take care of the place, you guys will work. So we just worked on cars. I mean, from Leeway, from Smoke Shop. It's funny because when we got to John Station, we were all buddies. But then when we got back into Chinatown, they went to Leeway, I went to Smoke Shop.
We used to hang around with our whatever buddies that used to work at a gas station. And we would bring our cars over to their gas station to work on it because they have a lift, we could get under it and do the major stuff. And it didn't have to be that one particular one, it would be just group of buddies that happen to have a buddy that works at a gas station, and that would be the place that we would be working on.
In any group of friends, there's always one who is the real seeker, the one who is his own North Star, the one everyone else looks up to. And when it came to the heads-up gasser look that every kid in Chinatown wanted, Frank was the one who knew how to make it happen.
Yeah, that first car, right? Got my first car in Chinatown. It was a piece of crap, but it was a car, right? So we said, hey, there's a big gas in Stockton this coming weekend. And I said, let's go in the 51 Plymouth. And I said, you know what, we're gonna go out. We're gonna go out to the peninsula. And then all the guys in Chinatown said, where's that? And I said, the peninsula, El Camino. El Camino Real, we'll cruise to El Camino. And again, where's that? So I got all the guys together, 10, 12 of us, and we just cruised down. And we went there, and then we started meeting all the guys there. We became friends with all the guys down living in San Mateo. All the Italians, all the white dudes, the Jews. They're all in the cars down there, right? All the peninsula, they're in the cars down there. Yeah, BZOs, and they're Al's Automotive. In fact, we even took those guys. We took the guys and said, hey, time for you guys to go to Chinatown. And those guys said, we're not gonna go to Chinatown. We heard about Chinatown. As long as you're with us, you're safe. At the time, my 62 Chevy 49, that's the car that started in Chinatown and for me. Because that car was a freak of nature. That car, completely stopped, it would turn 12s. Completely stopped. No tires, no work, no nothing, 12 seconds. So then that's when JC we changed the cam, did the carburetor work, put new gears and stuff like that. We would switch. They come Chinatown, we go to San Mateo, Chinatown, San Mateo. And then one of the guys from San Mateo went to Al's Automotive and had a spindle. And because it saw his car way up in the air, about 1.5 feet. I go, wow, looks bad as hell. The power leg, the power rate. So wow, where do you get that from? Al Automotive. So I said, where's this place? So I went down there. I met Al, and it was like $90. It was 80 or 90 bucks for the spindle. I had done it one day. And I said, well, what the hell are we gonna do with the back? Right? So Al had the leaf springs and stuff, so we did something for the back. Or else he had spacers. But I was doing it, that was the cheap way. But after a while, Al told me, he said, Frank, I'm gonna make some straight axles, 2 front ends. I go, and he showed it to me. I said, wow, that looks fantastic.
Al Fitting came up with a formula that not only raised the front end of a car for a straight axle, but stabilized the rear end and made the gasser look work well on the street too.
He was always thinking ahead of the game from what everybody was doing at the time. The Chinese guys are cool because they come to Al's and they tell Al, don't tell nobody, my car's here. Because they wanted to get the car done and then show up probably like at the 76 station in the city with the car all done, and so they were big time into the axle cars and that whole scene. Back then, you weren't able to buy parts, disc brake kits or steering arms or any of it. So everything had to be sought out and purchased. And so Bet Springs was one of the places that built Al's springs for the front of the axle cars. Some people tried to use trailer springs. They don't work very well because they're not long enough. And I mentioned before, Al was one of the only companies using chrome moly tubing. What chrome moly tubing is all about, it's 40% stronger than mild steel. So a lot of axles would bend that were being built other places. And so that solved that problem. So people didn't have issues with the cars after they left. And the other item Al did a lot of was drop spindles. So that's it's the opposite of the terminology today, but what it meant was the spindle was lowered so the car was higher. And
those were specially made out of a piece of 3/4 inch plate steel. Very, very strong and very well built. Again, it was another product that you could only get from Al's Automotive. So everything that came out of his shop was his. He designed it, he built it. What would happen with a lot of bars, you couldn't go in and out of driveways because of rotation of the rear end to the chassis. So Al developed what we call Al's bars, and they allowed that to happen so that it did not break things like the rear end housing, which is very common with a solid bar. So Al was very progressive in developing, better things.
Al was like he was like an engineer. Because I went to his shop and I watched him, and he mic'd everything. I mean, it wasn't just cutting this, slapping this. He had to make sure, measure it. I mean, he did everything. It took, it was a little work to do this.
Frankie was kind of like, this is what we're all about, okay? He was kind of like the picture of his community.
In all actuality, cars with that split axle handled much better, took turns better, everything better.
By the early 70s, the Chinatown look was a Tri-5 Chevy on an axle that was daily driven in the daylight hours and street raced at night. And in San Francisco, there were 3 known spots with a straightaway long enough to make a night race worth the risk. It was Brotherhood Way, Carroll Avenue, and the Great Highway that runs along Ocean Beach.
Brotherhood Way was called because it was on a stretch of street that was basically churches. And so, it was called Brotherhood Way. It was about a 1/4 mile, and in the end, at the end of it, was a little uphill, little curve to the right. So it was perfect for, deceleration and racing. There were all kind of stuff in the beginning. It used to be a dirt parking lot where everybody used to stage. The police would always chase us out. We would chase. There were stories where somebody brought a rail on a trailer, unloaded it, took her past, and the trailer was at the end. He went right on and took off. Another one night somebody built a little Christmas tree. One night I remember me and my brother was sitting on the top of a car in the parking lot, and it was quiet for a long time. The races were going on. I looked behind me, and the patrol car was just sitting there watching us. He didn't do anything. Well, of course, when I screamed, everybody yelled and ran and left. But he just sit there watching us, having a good time.
I used oversized coils and I raised it up to give it that look. Back then it was all about how fast you can go in a 1/4 mile. And that was our main goal. And street racing, again, it could be Great Highway, it could be Geary Street, it could be anywhere you can find a straightaway.
The way the Great Highway is configured today, you can't race. All right, but back then, they used to be there was like 3 or 4 lanes on each side, and it was straight, flat, and it was a great strip to just go ahead and light them up. And it was a great place for us to hang out too, because it was at the beach. So.
Sometimes it was you're just cruising along and you just pick up somebody. Somebody cruising up, and you either know somebody or somebody didn't know you, and they wanted to see how fast you were. They choose you. They come up next to you, revving their engine, and goosing their car. You got no choice but to hit them.
People say, hey, my ride's better than yours or whatever, and there's tension, and that's natural.
From my experience out of the Richmond and the Great Highway, we pretty much always got along pretty well. It was a pretty diverse group, and it's just that whoever wanted to go there and race, we all got along pretty well. There were never fights, no brawls. It was just everyone was out there to look at everyone's cars and have a good time, and it maybe only last a couple of hours, and that's it.
Carroll Avenue is in the heart of the Bayview, and we as Chinese, we don't go there too often. But we would go there to race once in a while or check out the cars. But for the most part, we were just visiting, and that wasn't our neighborhood.
You had a commonality of having a car. So there was a respect for your brother, for your brown brother and your black brother, because you owned a car. And they figure if you maintain and respect and love your car, you got to be a good person.
After all, the black guys and the Chinese, we all got, car brings a lot of guys together, right?
It's heard some of it's heard, through friends and whatever, They didn't like losing though. And they'd bump you. If they were losing, they'd bump you to take the win. So it was kind of a rough neighborhood.
Say this, if we did hung out, he wouldn't have the car because they race for pink slips, right? And some of them says, no, we just want to enjoy, our car. Let's run it, and whatever the fun that comes out of racing. And that's all it is. If they really want serious, they go Fremont.
And Catalina Wong's 55 Chevy is one of the few surviving straight axle warriors with some stories of its own.
At that time, it was just around the city. And we didn't do too much until it got stolen. Then we went on to the next car.
Yeah, tell me about that. How did it get stolen and how did you get it back?
It was parked out in the street. It wasn't parked, it wasn't garaged. It wasn't until when it was stolen and the diamond tuck upholstery that we had from Tijuana was stolen, everything. And it was just sitting right on the corner of the block, McAllister, right below Stanyon. Because when I remember I told you that I painted burgundy, I was kind of gearing on having somebody paint, the cherry bomb. You would paint all sorts of stuff on the side of the car, right? Like the Underdog. And I knew the person for the Underdog, and the little stories that go, with those two.
That cartoon, The Underdog? He would have that character on it. Yeah, he was called The Underdog. But there were other cars too, like there was another car called Yellow Peril, Misty, my car was called Good Vibrations.
And I put Heat Wave on the side because I like that song and I want to replicate something out of the 60s with two axle cars.
Yeah, so names on the side of the car was, back then it was pretty common.
Yeah.
We had Casper, Mellow Yellow.
Yeah. Underdog, then Prime Suspect I heard. Then a friend had Spooky. Prime Suspect was all primed out and said Prime Suspect. I remember that car so vividly. I go, that is so cool. It goes with the car. It flows with the character of the car, the person. And Spooky, okay, why did the person call Spooky? It was after a song, Spooky. And if you listen to the lyrics of the song and the tunes, that's what he chose.
These straight axle cars coming out of Chinatown did not go unnoticed by the hot rod scene just beyond its borders. And in the midst of my search for the car with Underdog painted on its side, I stumbled upon one of its original known accomplices.
Because it's kind of funny. Yeah, we had to record this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's making one.
Wave him in, so he doesn't see me. So.
No, is this Bill? Is this the Al's
This is
car?
Bill. Yeah, Al's automotive car. You'll be able to see his tube axle and the traction marks.
Tube axle and everything. That's cool.
Check this thing out. Brian, I'm glad you called him to come over here. Bill, we keep hearing about these cars, but tell us and kind of show us, what is it about this car that makes this an Al's Automotive car?
Well, they chopped the front end of the frame off and welded on some new frame rails to get rid of the coil spring suspension and put the leaf springs in. So you lose a little bit of weight. It gets them up higher to get more weight on the back end. In the old days, that's how they did it, the Gassers. So.
Now, is this a steel body or is this a fiberglass front end?
Steel.
It's all steel?
It's all steel. It's made in Oakland.
Really?
Didn't get too far from home.
So it's not that far at all from home? No. You didn't even cross the bridge yet?
No.
Well, it had to cross the bridge to get over to Al's.
It did.
Yeah. So how did you find out about Al's Automotive? What was going on at that shop back then?
Well, when I got this car, I traded it for a Ford Galaxy, a race car called the Spook. It was a 427 4-speed car and all that had been blown up and rebuilt. And anyway, I traded it for this thing, and it was lowered, not because it was lowered, because it was wore out. They welded the ball joints in and all that. So when I took it down to the front end shop, the guy just started laughing. It's going to cost me at that time a little over $300 to get all that stock stuff put in. So I said, you know what, forget it. I'm going to put a tube axle in here. So I cut school on a Friday. Friday morning, I was down at Al's Automotive, and I sat and watched. He says, you can pick it up later. And I said, you got my wheels. I'm here. So I had to wait for him. So it took in the bulk of the day, but he did it all by himself. Everything. Led the brakes, everything. Got it running, and I paid him $350 and was on my way.
Yellow Peril, Mellow Yellow, Underdog. Do you remember any of those?
Underdog, wasn't that the one?
56.
It was all drilled out. Everything was drilled on. Yeah, I saw him in Walnut Creek. We used to cruise the Main. I'd see him down there.
Did you really?
So you knew it before Andy owned it.
I think he had 538s or something in the back, drilled A-frames and all that stuff.
It was Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
No kidding.
It was gutted.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea where that
I
car
never saw
went?
the car again.
Just that one time?
I saw him one Friday night, and that was it. He came down and buzzed up around the main drag there and then took off. So
I think everybody says the same thing. I saw that car once. You know, I saw that car in high school. I saw that car on the street, and it just vanishes.
I never forgot that car. That was a badass car. I think he had plexiglass windows in it, I believe, all that stuff, yeah.
I think they were green windows.
Yep.
And
Oh, yeah, it had Underdog
fiberglass front end.
Big Underdog written on the side of the cars, I remember.
God, that's what we keep seeing pictures of it. It's like a ghost. We can't find it. You know?
Yeah, they're still out there. I'm telling you, people hang on to them.
But where was the Underdog? And who owned it? Man, some ghosts just want to keep doing ghost shit.